Narendra Modi a range of issues including food and energy security, clean energy and climate change expected to figure. US President Joe Biden lauds India's G20 presidency after a bilateral meeting with Prime Minister Modi, reaffirms US support for India's permanent membership in UNSC. Prime Minister Modi to hold bilateral meetings with leaders of United Kingdom, Japan, Germany and Italy today. In bypoll results of 7 assembly seats in 6 states, BJP secured 3. SP, Trinamool, Congress-led UDF and JMM win 1 each. RBI to discontinue Incremental Cash Reserve Ratio put in place to absorb surplus liquidity after withdrawal of 2,000 rupee notes in a phased manner. And in US Open tennis, Rohan Bopanna and Matthew Ebden lose men's doubles final against Rajeev and Joe Salisbury in New York last night. And now the news in detail. The 18th G20 Leaders Summit will begin with much fanfare as heads of world-leading economies will gather at Bharat Mandapam in New Delhi today. To be chaired by Prime Minister Narendra Modi, the two-day summit will see the participation of US President Joe Biden, UK Prime Minister Rishi Sunak, Japanese Prime Minister Fumio Kishida, Prime Minister of Canada Justin Trudeau, Australian Prime Minister Anthony Albanese, among others. Several issues ranging from food and energy security to clean energy transition and climate change are expected to be deliberated at length by the world's leading economies during this global event. India is leveraging its G20 presidency to establish itself as a global powerhouse, advocating for the hopes and aspirations of many developing nations. The key priorities for India's G20 presidency include sustainable development goals and climate action. Briefing media yesterday, G20 Sherpa Amitabh Kant said the New Delhi Leaders' Declaration is almost ready and will be recommended to the leaders during the G20 summit.
During this presidency, we had some broad priorities with which we started. First of which, that at a point of time when the 1/3 of the world is facing a recession, we should drive bold, sustainable, strong and inclusive growth. The second key priority for us was to have accelerated sustainable development goal. Thirdly, we wanted the world to take the lead on green development in the context of climate action and climate finance.
Foreign Secretary Vinay Mohan Quatra said that India expects the summit proceedings to take a suitable decision on the inclusion of the African Union in the G20 bloc. In response to a question on the Ukraine conflict holding up an agreement on the New Delhi Declaration, Mr. Quatra said India's expectation is that all G20 members will move towards a consensus and India is hopeful of a consensus on the communiqué.
With regard to the African Union, the Honourable Prime Minister wrote a letter to all countries of the G20 proposing that African Union be included as a full member of the G20. We expect that the summit proceeding would take suitable decision on it.
Meanwhile, Prime Minister Narendra Modi has expressed confidence that the New Delhi G20 summit will chart a new path in human-centric and inclusive development. In a social media post, he highlighted that India's G20 presidency has been inclusive, ambitious, decisive and action-oriented. Now let us go over live to our correspondent Suparna Saikia, who is at Bharat Mandapam to get the latest updates about the summit. Suparna, can you give us a broad outline of the events lined up for today at the summit?
Yes, Anuja. The day will begin with a ceremonial welcome of the leaders. After that, the inaugural session, which has been named One Earth, will continue till lunch. Post-lunch, there will be a second session titled One Family. The Prime Minister will also be is expected to hold several bilateral meetings today. President Draupadi Murmu will host in the evening the state dinner for the visiting dignitaries. The guests will be treated to a cultural program and an instrumental musical program during the dinner. And it is expected that India's diverse musical journey will be on full display, and many rare instruments will be used during this performance. An ensemble will present classical and folk music and young musicians and the young artists will participate in it. Nuja.
Thank you, Suparna, for this update, and we'll keep tracking you later in the day. Yesterday, Prime Minister Narendra Modi held a bilateral meeting with US President Joe Biden at his official residence in New Delhi, where both the leaders discussed a wide range of topics to further economic and people-to-people linkages between India and the US. In a social media post, Mr. Modi termed the talks as productive. Mr. Modi expressed confidence that the friendship between both the nations will continue to play a great role in furthering global good. In a joint statement issued after the meeting, both the leaders agreed to continue the work of transforming the India-US strategic partnership. Prime Minister Modi and President Biden reaffirmed the importance of the Quad in supporting a free, open, inclusive and resilient Indo-Pacific. President Biden lauded India's G20 presidency for further demonstrating on how the G20 as a forum is delivering important outcomes. As per the statement, the leaders reaffirmed their commitment to the G20 and expressed confidence that the outcomes of the G20 Leaders Summit in New Delhi will advance the shared goals of accelerating sustainable development, bolstering multilateral cooperation, and scaling up multilateral development banks. President Biden reaffirmed his support for a reformed UN Security Council with India as a permanent member, and in this context, he welcomed once again India's candidature for the UNSC non-permanent seat in 2028-29. Biden congratulated Modi on Chandrayaan-3's historic landing in the South Polar region of the Moon, as well as the successful launch of India's first solar mission, Aditya L1. More
Following
from our
the
correspondent.
bilateral talks, the White House said in a statement that the two leaders also welcomed the growing number of multi-institutional collaborative education partnerships. Both the leaders reiterated their commitment in promoting policies and adopting regulations that facilitate greater technology sharing and opportunities of co-development and co-production between Indian and US industry, government and academic institutions. Besides, Mr. Modi also held productive bilateral talks with his Bangladesh counterpart Sheikh Hasina and Prime Minister of Mauritius Pravind Kumar Jagannath. The Prime Minister will hold bilateral meetings with leaders from the United Kingdom, Japan, Germany and Italy later today. Mr. Modi will hold meetings tomorrow with French President Emmanuel Macron. With Sushil Chandra Tiwari, Lakshmi, Akashvani News, Delhi.
Prime Minister Narendra Modi will hold bilateral meeting with Prime Minister of Saudi Arabia, Prince Mohammed bin Salman bin Abdulaziz Al Saud in New Delhi on Monday. This is Akashvani giving you the news. For quick news updates around the clock, follow us on our Twitter handle at Air News Alerts. News just in. Former Chief Minister of Andhra Pradesh Chandrababu Naidu has been arrested by the Criminal Investigation Department Police in Nandyala today in connection with the Skill Development Corporation scam. The allegations against Mr. Naidu and others involved in the case include manipulating contracts, misappropriating public money, and orchestrating a fraudulent scheme under the guise of Skill Development Corporation. The project in question had a total cost of 3,356 crores rupees, with the government contributing 10%, while Siemens committed to 90% of the funding. The Election Commission EC has declared bypoll results of 7 assembly seats in Uttar Pradesh, West Bengal, Jharkhand, Kerala, Tripura and Uttarakhand. The BJP won 3 seats in Tripura and Uttarakhand, while SP, Congress, TMC and JMM won 1 seat each. The 6 states went to polls on the 5th of September. The BJP retained the Bageshwar Assembly seat in Uttarakhand with its candidate Parvati Das defeating Congress Basant Kumar by more than 2,400 votes. In Uttar Pradesh, Samajwadi Party candidate Sudhakar Singh defeated his BJP rival Dara Singh Chauhan in the Ghosi Assembly by-poll with a margin of 42,759 votes. JMM candidate Baby Devi won the by-election to the Dumri Assembly seat in Jharkhand's Giridih district by defeating AJSU party nominee Yashoda Devi by more than 17,100 votes. The ruling Trinamool Congress wrested the Dhupgiri assembly seat in West Bengal's Jalpaiguri district from the BJP. Trinamool Congress candidate Nirmal Chandra Roy won with a margin of 4,313 votes. In Tripura's Sipahijala district, the BJP won the by-elections to the Dhanpur and Boxanagar assembly seats by huge margins. BJP's Tafajjal Hussain won the Boxanagar seat by 30,237 votes, whereas Bindu Debnath bagged the Dhanpur seat by 18,871 votes. In Kerala, the opposition Congress UDF retained the Puthupalli Assembly constituency as its candidate Chandi Uman won by a margin of 37,719 votes. The Reserve Bank of India, or RBI, decided to discontinue the Incremental Cash Reserve Ratio, or ICRR, which was put in place to absorb surplus liquidity following the withdrawal of 2,000 rupee currency notes in a phased manner beginning today. On 10th of August, the RBI mandated banks to maintain an incremental cash reserve ratio of 10% on the increase in their net demand and time liabilities between 19th of May 2023 and 28 July 2023. The measure was intended to absorb the surplus liquidity generated by various factors, including the return of 2,000 rupee notes to the banking system. The central bank in its statement said that based on an assessment of current and evolving liquidity conditions, it has been decided that the amounts impounded under the ICRR would be released in stages so that system liquidity is not subjected to sudden shocks and money markets function in an orderly manner. The RBI further said 25% of the amount of ICRR maintained by banks will be released tomorrow. The general mood in Maldives is high as the archipelago nation holds presidential elections today. A record 8 candidates are in the fray, including incumbent President Ibrahim Mohamed Soli, Ilyas Labin and Mohammad Muizu. On to sports. In US Open tennis, Rohan, Bopanna and Matthew Ebden lost the final match of men's doubles against Rajeev, Joe Salisbury in New York last night. Indo-Australian pair Bopanna Ebden made a dominating start in the summit clash by winning the first set, but failed to cash in on the golden opportunity and lost to the British-American pair Ram Salisbury 6-2, 3-6, 4-6. In men's singles, second seed Novak Djokovic defeated American unseeded Ben Shelton 6-3, 6-2, 7-6 in the first semi-final yesterday. Defending champions Carlos Alcaraz will meet former US Open champion Daniel Medvedev in the other semi-final this morning. And now, for a look at today's newspapers, it's over to Tanvi Khurana.
Thank you, Anuja. The dailies are abuzz with the news of the national capital rolling out red carpet for G20 delegates. World lands, G20 takes off, writes Hindustan Times. Heads of states check in floored by Indian warmth and hospitality, says the Times of India. From introducing UPI, Aadhaar and AI-based language platform Bhashini to eSanjeevani, Digital India Experience Zone set up at G20, states the pioneer. Biden PM vow to deepen defense ties, explore new domains. India gets backing for UNSC seat, reports the Tribune. Summit declaration will be voice of Global South developing countries, the Indian Express quotes India's G20 Sherpa. A front page headline in the Economic Times states NVIDIA to partner Reliance Tata for big AI play in India. And finally, Hindustan Times mentions about the stalls showcasing shades of India at Pragati Maidan. And with that, it's back to you, Anuja.
Thank you, Tanvi. And now, before we end the bulletin, the headlines once again. 18th G20 summit under Indian presidency to begin this morning in New Delhi, chaired by Prime Minister Narendra Modi. A range of issues including food and energy security, clean energy and climate change expected to figure. US President Joe Biden lauds India's G20 presidency after a bilateral meeting with Prime Minister Modi, reaffirms US support for India's permanent membership in UNSC. Prime Minister Modi to hold bilateral meetings with leaders of United Kingdom, Japan, Germany and Italy today. In bypoll results of 7 assembly seats in 6 states, BJP secured 3, SP, Trinamool, Congress-led UDF and JMM win 1 each.